Right on, writers, and welcome to the Books by Adrian author platform. This is our podcast, the Books by Adrian podcast, and with me today, I should have cleared with you how to pronounce your last name, Martin Lejeune.
Yeah.
How is it really? Tell me how it's really pronounced.
I say Lejeune, but whatever works.
Lejeune, so it's more of an but like a low, like Lejeune. Okay.
Yeah.
The E throws me off because the E makes me feel like it should be more of a full vowel, like you kind of sound.
Oh, it's French. It makes no sense logically whatsoever, but there we go.
I wasn't going to say it. All right. My brother, welcome. Tell the people at home who you are, where you're from, and what you're working on these days.
My name is Martin. I am a sci-fi author from the south of England in a city called Bristol. About almost 12 months to the day, a writer friend of mine, Malcolm Bradley, popped up and said, hey, you've written a couple of books you're not doing anything with. I've written a couple of books I've not done anything with. Do you want to team up and write a series of novels? And I said no. I said, no, man, I've just written a novel on my own. I can do this. I can go it alone. And then I thought about it for 5 minutes and I realized that it's been terribly lonely and it would be nice to have a friend. So we started hitting ideas around. We're now writing a space opera series called The McMurdo Rift.
And that's the project that we're talking about today, correct?
Oh, yes. It's
okay.
Basically Casablanca meets the Expanse.
Okay. McMurdo Rift.
McMurdo. It's named for an explorer from the 19th century called Archibald McMurdo. You can't go wrong with mentioning Victorian sailors in your marketing. Sci-fi fans love it.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But if you know McMurdo Station in Antarctica, that's who it's named for.
Gotcha. Okay.
I just took it from Mountains of Madness, not gonna lie.
Hey, first-time writers, we steal from everybody.
Yeah.
That is encouraged in our profession. So we're doing something a little different today with our podcast episode. This is the live stream Sunday off season. Typically, this podcast is a companion piece to that show. Whoever's on that show sticks around after the live show and does this recording with me, and we usually talk about the show and continue the conversation that was happening there. You are the first guest that I have had in the off season. Thanks to holiday shenanigans and other issues. Thanks for working with me with scheduling, by the way. We've missed a couple of weeks of this podcast. So you're the first one on the off season. And so I'm experimenting a little bit with you, and I apologize for that. but that's
You're not the first. I'm sure you won't be the last.
And it's not always all bad, right? Sometimes it works out just fine. I need to shut off that side light. I forgot about it. I'm getting shadows. I don't like shadows in my video. No. All right. So what we did was I read the prologue to your project and you read the prologue to my project, and we're going to do a little bit of critique stuff here. We're going to go through the documents and share our thoughts. I am going to include in the show notes down below a copy of each of these works in their present state, and folks can give their thoughts as well in the comment section. I encourage that. You guys can read these two prologues, enjoy them for what they are, and enjoy this episode as we both critique each other's work. It might be a complete disaster, but we're gonna give this a shot. You know
what? I think group critiques done live might just be a format that could catch on, that could go the distance.
Well, hey, man, Barrett Laurie and his crew over there are all doing that critique group live stuff, and they're... See,
I was being subtle about it, and...
yeah, I'm being more direct.
That's the difference between British and American humor. Hey, yeah, this could catch on.
I'm just trying to give them.
thing you're referencing. I get the reference.
I'm just making sure that we give credit where credit is due, because because even though writers are encouraged to steal from other writers, YouTubers are not always encouraged to steal from other YouTubers.
Oh, it's fine. I nicked Flash Aha from Kent Sean, and I've got away with it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we definitely we're all paying homage to each other. This is an homage to Critique Group Live is what this is, and it's by no means something that I intend to make a habit of on this show. This is kind of a unique situation because we each happened to exchange stories, and we're like, what the hell, let's do it. So what do we want to do? Do you want to go first with mine, or should I go first with yours? I'm gonna let you decide, you being the guest.
With mine.
Me first. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if I'm going first,
this is a top tip for all you wannabe critique partners. You always let the other person speak, because then you're coming at it from a position of power.
It was a power move. Well, being the guest, I'll allow it. I'll allow it. Being that you're the guest. All right. So I have a couple questions before I dive in. First of all, the name Bradley Lejeune is used on here. Lejeune, excuse me. Bradley Lejeune is on here, and it is explained to be the pen name of the team up between yourself and Mr. Malcolm Bradley, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you both wrote this.
Originally it was just going to be, the McMurdo Rift Book 1 in the McMurdo Rift saga, written by best friend authors Martin and Malcolm. And then I thought, marketing.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. And it also has the added bonus of, if we screw this up entirely, which, going by your critique, we might well have, then we haven't burnt our actual names. So yeah, I take the first pass, I send it over to him, he does the second pass, and then I kind of go over it, and we sort of fidget it a bit more and send it out to beta readers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What draft is this of your prologue?
3.
There's a third draft. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I believe
you say that like it doesn't look it.
I did not say that like that. How dare you put thoughts in my head and words in my mouth? I take offense. No. Okay. So here's what I'm looking at from it. Number one, this is classic sci-fi stuff. I was seeing Independence Day the entire time I was reading this thing. I was feeling it. You know what I mean? The giant spaceship, the all of it. It was very Independence Day. A couple of things that jump out as far as my red pen is concerned. You have a favorite word, and your favorite word is vast. And I would recommend that you hit the find on your document and put in vast and replace each one with something else. Not all of them, obviously. You're allowed to use the word, but it's very, very prevalent. Number 2, the large alien ship is referred to so many times that you need a name for it in this prologue, I feel. Even though the humans do not know the official name of this craft, they would make one up, because that's what we do. We give it a code name, we assign some word to it based on how it looks, something that you can just use in the place of always describing it as the very large alien ship. It was getting to the point where it was like, yes, it's large. I get that it's large. Tell me something else about it. So give it a name and give details about it, because I was getting a little bit of White Room stuff going on where I couldn't picture it. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't see it yet. I need a little more from you so that I can see it. That being said, I really, really dig this thing. Franklin is awesome. The whole thing with it's his ship that goes into his jet that goes into the ship, right? After he gets bumped from behind. But then you have a point of view change towards the end there, right? You switch over to this other dude. I don't know if you need to do that. I don't know if I don't know if maybe it's distracting to me, like switching the point of view. It takes the reader out of it for a second. And this being a prologue and having been as exciting as it was, and ending with Franklin in such a strange and unusual and unfamiliar place, that's kind of like the spot to end it. I feel like this extra piece at the end might be overkill or just too much of a shift for your reader. You should throw them into the book at that point. The prologue has done its thing, and you should go into. But I'm loving this thing, and I can't wait to see what chapter 1 is like, man. I do have some like red marks on here. Most of it is what I've talked about, and I printed it out and I did it on paper, so I still have to like update it in the computer and send it to you so that you can actually see what I'm talking about. But those are my biggest notes, I feel like. Other than that, dude, the voice is cool, the pacing is cool. I like I said, I was seeing Independence Day the whole time, which is a compliment. Like I mean that as praise. I love that movie. I love the aesthetic of it and the sort of thriller aspect that they took to sci-fi, and I feel that here, man. I feel like the thriller sci-fi.
It's definitely something we lean into more because it's the prologue, and I very much want it to be a scene you've seen before. You know, I'm really laying the foundations of the genre, saying, you know, here's where we're starting. It's familiar, so I can take it where it's going to go.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, and like the other POV we have is a guy called Arnold Philby, who is a significant character in the series.
Gotcha.
And his so our protagonist is Mark Franklin, who is a basically it is the 11th hour. Humanity's having a bit of a squabble between Earth and its colonies, and then some aliens who have always kept to themselves have suddenly got involved on the colonies side. I'm not saying it's the fall of the British Empire. I'm not saying it's the American Revolutionary War. But, you know, suddenly things have gotten out of hand and Earth is on its knees. And he's a guy who has lived out amongst the colonies. He's never been particularly patriotic or nationalistic, but he really doesn't want to see his world fall either, and has felt compelled to give, you know, to put everything else on hold to hopefully make a difference.
It's one of those unifying events, right? That like brings everybody together, where like, you know, even the dude that doesn't care really about being patriotic towards his country or whatever, he's like, yo, man, I don't want to die either. Let's go do this thing. So yeah.
And Arnold Philby is his direct commanding officer, and we see their relationship at the beginning when they are at their closest. And I don't normally do this. I find it a bit annoying when people name their characters with like a bit of a wink at the audience. And what I often do is, like, if I need a character name, I can be frozen dead. Like, I can't keep going because I've got nothing to call this guy. So now I'll just, you know, come up with a temporary name so I can keep going. And initially, in the initial conversations, he was going to be a traitor and go over to the enemy. So I named him for Benedict Arnold and Kim Philby, who was a British intelligence agent who defected to the Soviets. Okay. So I gave him the most on-the-nose name conceivable. And as
Trader McTraderson.
Yeah. As the draft went on, his character completely went in a different direction, and I was able to keep the name, which I do quite like.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, names are so important, man, and they do tend to stop me in my tracks too. If I'm in a scene where a new character is stepping up and becoming important, like, oh well, I gotta name this character before I go on. You know, I've gotten quicker about it though. You know, it doesn't stop me for very long.
There's a website which you just put character name generator into Google, and it will ask you a couple of things like, what are their nationality, what's their parents' nationality, what year were they born, and then it has like other things like, oh, what kind of character are they idealistic leader or such and such, which I don't normally bother with because they don't normally name people brilliant McLeaderson, when they're born. They tend to be called, Fred Smith and get thrown into greatness. But
I name my characters the way I named my children, which is to decide on the meaning that I'm going for, base that off of their personality as far as I know, and name them a name that means that theme. Both of my kids, their names, if you take the meaning of their first, middle, and last name and put them together, it creates a sentence. It speaks a phrase. Like so, I do that for my characters too. The main characters.
Are they like, oh, Dad, you're so embarrassing?
No, they don't even know it yet. He's 6 and 2. They'll figure it out eventually. They don't know. That's the other thing is you don't tell them that that's what it means or whatever. They just embody it naturally and become that,
So can I swear?
Yeah, this is an adult channel. Fuck it.
I made a point really early on. I think it's possibly the first thing that Franklin says is fuck, and what I actually put on the very first draft was fuck, open brackets. Yes, Malcolm, it's a type of spaceship book where people say fuck.
You gotta let a man know. Yeah, Neil Gaiman, one of my favorite books is American Gods, and he very famously in an interview explains that in that first chapter, he made sure to throw the word fuck in often and very early to get anybody who is not okay with adult books out from the jump. And then, like, after the first chapter, though, he immediately puts in a little short story interlude where the goddess of love and beauty consumes a man through her vagina. And again, he's just like, I'm just making sure that everyone knows what kind of book this is gonna be. First chapter, end of the first chapter. If you still are on board, great. If not, bye. It's not gonna get better for you. Leave now.
A couple of months ago, I started being more in the AuthorTube community, and a couple of people reached out about doing this kind of conversation. So I sat down, I'm like, right, I need to have a bloody newsletter up and running. BradleyLejeune.com, sign up now. And I went over this prologue, and I properly went, but is this the kind of sci-fi book where people say fuck? And I ummed and ahed, because I obviously, like, you look at Star Trek The Next Generation, it's very very platonic, very not many people saying fuck. And you look at Arthur C. Clarke or any of that sort of classic sci-fi, and again, those kind of open the pod date doors. How? I cannot do that, Dave. Oh, for fuck's sake! It doesn't happen. And I spoke to a couple of writer friends about it, and they were like, well, what books are you comparing it to? And I thought about it, and the stuff a lot of the stuff I'm reading, like contemporary stuff, is things like The Expanse, is stuff like John Scalzi, and it's like, yeah, it's fine to have swearing in a sci-fi novel. It's if it's at, like, not everyone needs it, but some
if George
of them do.
Martin can do it in fantasy, why can't everybody else do it in sci-fi?
You gotta be careful with that analogy, because then people say that other people did a TV show and it ended badly.
Who cares? I don't care about that, man. I love those books. Those books are
and
awesome.
I thought you were great in the first season, by the way.
This is the Jon Snow, isn't it? This is that's how he does it. Um, all right. I'm sorry to rein it back into your prologue. Um, any other thoughts on my notes for you? I'm gonna give you like official notes, in the email. But
I would just say that when you sent me your prologue, you were like, "This is not a copy editor. I want more broad strokes on what working and what isn't, rather than spelling mistakes." So it's like, oh, okay then. But no,
because that's what I was looking for in yours. You know what I mean? Like, there's like little typos and stuff, but you're gonna catch that with a line editor. Like, that's not.
Am I though?
That's not what you. Well, you should anyway. I'll include them in the notes if you want me to. But yeah, I was more focused on like your pacing, which is good, and like I said, I think I just want a little more detail on the spaceships. I want to know what they look like a little more. And I did give you the one note about your favorite word, so I guess that is a little bit of a line edit thing, but that's something that like I'm sure that you found one in mine. It's almost impossible to avoid. You don't catch it in your own stuff, you catch it later. There are a couple of sentences where like I noted down that I suggest a rewrite of the sentence, not that it's bad like the information is fine and all that stuff, but like the flow of the sentence kind of like you kind of hit it a little bit. It's something that I've been noticing in my work a lot. Like I notice where like it's flowing, and then all of a sudden you hit a sentence where you're like, I had to like work to read this sentence. And so it's a rhythm thing I've found. So like when I edit, I'll edit with like some background music going, nothing with lyrics, just movie scores or concentration music, something like that, and I'll read it out loud to myself. And as I'm reading it and I'm listening to the music, I tend to find like a rhythm to my prose, and then I'll find where the sentence like clashes and stops and interrupts my flow, and it's a good way to catch little moments like that. So I'll point them out to you in the notes, and you can choose to rewrite them or not, but they're the ones that I found that like as I was reading I butted up against them, but man, like this is a cool idea. Like I really can't wait to see where you go with this, because and mine is set in a sci-fi world, but my story is more of a murder mystery at the end of the day. You can't really tell by that prologue, but it's a murder mystery at the end of the day, so it's a whole different kind of thing. Like you're doing straight up like epic space sci-fi. There's alien races already, like from the jump. Like I'm in, bro. I'm in.
One thing that really was like an albatross around my neck is like the opening line. So the opening line is, can you read the opening line since you got it in front of you?
I'll try. the Berliner Fernsehturm, is that what this motherfucker had loomed over the center of Berlin for hundreds of years, dominating Alexanderplatz below it. Yeah, that first sentence is a doozy, bro. I don't know. Like, I definitely clashed into that one.
So, my first draft, like, so basically, I wanted to start with, like, you open on an iconic building and say that building has been there, beyond living memory. It's impossible to imagine it not being there.
Yeah. Except
now it's not there.
Yeah.
And originally, like I say, placeholder names, I called it I just called it like the Megacore building or something really cheesy. Yeah. And it was one of those things, every time I looked at it, made me flinch. And I think on Malcolm's pass, he changed.
So you made a hard left in the opposite direction.
Yeah. So, and then I think in Malcolm's first pass, he called it like the Rainbow Core building, and I'm just like, and then I stopped for 2 minutes to think about it. I'm just like, okay, why don't we actually look at Berlin landmarks? And in East Berlin, you've got the TV tower, which is more usually just called the the Berlin TV tower. But when, as you've pointed out, one doesn't want to use the same wording too frequently, so we open with its given name. Because we hate our future audiobook narrator.
Hey man, like, he's got his work cut out for him. Page 1, line 1. What?
But it's like you've seen the scene 1,000 times, and originally it was just going to be New York because it's always New York. And
I like that it's not. I like that it's not.
It's like, and also, I mean, on an allegorical level, what happens to Earth in the series is kind of, influenced by what happens to Germany in the 20th century. Ooh, that sounds exciting. I want to buy his books. So, yeah, just trying to...
Sorry, keep going.
So, just try and put a different spin on it and, try and put the familiar in unfamiliar settings, and I showed it to my German mate, and he said, "Oh yeah, it reads very much like the London Bridge was in London."
The London Bridge was in London. That's nice. All right, man. So, as far as the show, I think that's the notes that I have for you. I'll send you an actual write up of stuff. So, what about you, man? What did you have for me? Apologies for how long it is, by the way. I know it's like the longest prologue ever written.
Yeah, I was like, prologue. Yeah, I'll get this ready. Oh.
Yeah, it's a doozy. It's a short story. It's a novella.
There was a line I really liked, which was about the image of Earth's moon being something outside of any of the characters' frame of reference, but it was so iconic that they all just referenced it, recognized it, and I just thought that was a really cool bit of world building.
Yeah, it's like this collective consciousness kind of thing, right? Where we all just kind of know. Yeah.
But I think my main takeaway from it as like a prologue is, I think you could do more to reinforce the genre and the settings. Like, you kind of, we're obviously off somewhere else in the future, but the scene could take place, half an hour ago in a city.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're going for. And like, that can totally work. But for me, I'd like a better sense of, where we are and when we are and why we are. And I'm sure you sort of spread that out through the book as a whole.
Yes.
It's probably just, but like, my approach to these things is just, I mean, have you considered having a vast spaceship come and shoot shit?
No.
But
no, I get that the sci-fi genre needs to, that I get the note that you're giving. At the same time, though, number one, yes, it is spread out a lot more throughout the book. Me orienting you in where we are in our date and time is kind of part of the plot, because
are you doing the Planet of the Apes thing?
No, it's more about, like, we all know what happened, but what really happened. And we all know when it happened that long ago, but how long ago was it really? And so, like, there's this sort of like unfolding of the history of the world that happens throughout the plot, kind of naturally. However, it's a sci-fi setting, but it's also a fantasy. I have magic elements that will be introduced slowly throughout the book as well. It's a murder mystery, so I also didn't want to turn up the sci-fi to 11 because I don't want that to be the focus. I want the murder mystery to be the focus. I want the sci-fi stuff to be sort of dressing.
Am I right in thinking you've said that you were quite influenced by Brian K. Vaughan?
I have not said that. No, I am not actually very well versed in a lot of Brian K. Vaughan. I'm actually, my sci-fi reading is usually more like Michael Crichton stuff.
Right.
Which is to say that I really love when sci-fi is a little more subtle. I love big space operas. I'm technically writing one. It will get more space opera-y as it goes along in the series. By the third book, we're gonna have intergalactic wars and shit. It's gonna be nuts.
Hooray!
But we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there slowly. The thing though is that the sci-fi that I love to read the most is very kind of I don't know. Other than subtle, I can't think of another word to describe it. Just a little more toned down, where it's like it's mostly a world that you feel familiar with, but there's just something a little off about it. There's something a little different. There's something, a little more sci-fi.
Because I kind of got Saga vibes from this.
I'm a huge Saga fan, so that's a huge
1 month to go, baby.
Oh my god, I love that. I love that freaking book. Saga. I don't know if that's a conscious, influence, but it's definitely an influence. Yeah, for sure. What about?
It's really difficult when you're first sort of planning out a new sci-fi universe, and you're kind of like, well,
what hasn't been done?
I want it to be a bit more technologically advanced than Battlestar Galactica, but probably not as advanced as Star Trek: The Next Generation. But and like stuff like someone fires a laser. What do you call it? Because it's like anything you've heard in another thing is probably not a phrase you can use. And there's a couple of instances in the current draft where characters call it a laser, and it's like, yeah, that doesn't sit right either.
Yeah.
But it's like you don't want to come up with a whole new terminology, but you kind of need to.
Yeah, it's a tightrope walk for sure. I've run into the same thing. In the first chapter, the one after the prologue, we meet one of our main point of view characters. And she's a detective, the detective working the case, and you start getting more into the technology and the kind of stuff that that she has access to and what it's used for. And one thing that I wanted to do with my kind of sci-fi world is that I changed up like who your partners are in things. So like instead of a detective being a partner with another detective, and they're working a crime scene and they call for forensics, and forensics comes down, and or if it's a cyber crime, then they have to liaison with someone. Instead, the detective is like a one-man show where like the technology at his disposal basically makes him a walking forensics lab, and his partner is the cyber guy, he's IT, he's the guy in the chair. And so you have a buddy cop kind of setup, but it's not two cops. It's a cop and a scientist. And it gives it kind of a different flavor there. But anyway, that's...
Did you like Altered Carbon? Did you read that?
I didn't read it. I saw the series. I really enjoyed the first season. I couldn't finish the second season. I was not into it. But I intend to read those books very soon, as soon as I have time.
I gotta be honest, I read the first one. It bored me to tears.
Did it? I hear mixed reviews. Some people really love it. Some people say it's kind of a slog. Yeah, I hear you. I mean, Dune is incredibly successful in it. It takes like 9 years to read.
See, things can work if they're boring.
It's not that it's boring. It's just
no, it really is. I've read that book.
Yeah, boring.
I really liked the new film, but that was a very pleasant surprise.
So good. I liked it a lot. Yeah, I was into it a lot, for sure. Any other notes for me?
No, I really like the characters. The characters are really well. They're the kind of people you've seen before, not necessarily in sci-fi, but you immediately know where you are and what's going on, even if you don't know where you are and what's going on. It was a very easy shoe to slip into.
Nice.
You know, you kind of know what Bella's experiencing and kind of what's going on there, and like I do like if done right, I do like a bit of magic with my sci-fi. It's like it feels like I like that here's a world, you're just thrown into it, keep up.
Yeah.
But also, I can't keep up. Tell me more.
Yeah. Oh, there's plenty more. Did I send you all my chapters, or did I only send you the prologue? I must have sent you like the first act.
More, yeah.
Yeah. I tend to send like what I consider the first act of the novel. So it's the first 6 chapters, the prologue through chapter 5. By the end of chapter 5, if you're not on board with my book, then just put it down here. You're not on board with my book. But thank you for the thoughts on the characters. I put a lot of thought and time into my characters and their dialogue, and this prologue, Bella and Mitch are the 2 dead bodies in chapter 1 that the detective has to start a case with. That's why the prologue is as long as it is. That's why I take them through as much character development as I do, because they're dead. Like that's it. Like they'll sort of haunt our characters for the rest of the book, but that's their part in our book. And so
it's funny on book social media, every now and again you'll get people who are just like, I hate prologues. Why are there prologues? I don't read them. And they're probably watching this just crying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing. If you don't read them, then why do you have such a huge problem with them? If you're skipping them anyway, then just shut the fuck up about it.
I love a good prologue. I love it when you just
I love a good prologue. My book has a prologue and an epilogue.
Yeah.
I like a nice sandwich.
It just sets the tone of the book. All my books have, in this series, they have prologues and epilogues, and I've really enjoyed, because my earliest writing was short films, and nice. I didn't do anything in prose for years and years because I was scared that someone would, not much like yourself, would come along and just go, your sentences. But
not at all, man. They're good. They're good.
And now they are. They weren't back then. But it turns out if you get people to act it all out and point cameras at them, then you can get away with quite a lot. And one of the weirdest things, in contrast, is you need, especially where it's sort of, where each chapter is from someone's point of view, you need to have a character in the place where the thing happens, or you can't show it. And that sort of took a while to get my head around, especially in the scene in book 3 where the main character passes out. I still haven't quite figured that one out. But yeah, the epilogues are also a really fun way to sort of be like, ooh, now I can be a new person for a bit.
See, I can't remember who gave this advice, if it was George Martin or if it was Neil Gaiman. They tend to give very similar advice sometimes. But the note was, or the question was posed to them, how do you decide on the point of view character for any given chapter? And the answer was, this was probably George Martin, because he writes multiple point of views. His note was, the character who knows the least about what's going on. That's your point of view character,
Mm-hmm.
the one who knows the least. And I've tried to kind of stick with that, you know, being the main character being a detective. This person is investigating the mystery, but that's the whole point. They don't know, right? Like, they don't know the answer, so you have to go along with them to get there. I've run into situations like the one you're talking about, where a character is unconscious. I mean, you know, a point of view character is unconscious or incapacitated in some way or whatever. So what I'll do is, that's the end of that chapter, and the next chapter is a point of view character in that scene that has no clue what's going on. Just pick the character, even if they don't have another point of view chapter in the rest of the book. They're the ones to witness this particular event, and so you just take them through a nice little arc in that one chapter. And even if you never go back into their head again for the rest of the novel, at least their one appearance feels complete, because you take them through a little arc even in that one chapter. But yeah, just whoever knows the least about what's going on, just jump in their head and keep going. Yeah. I'm out of water. I get so thirsty doing this stuff.
Oh yeah, I always have like a glass and a mug and a bottle, because we were doing a flash once and I didn't do that, and I only had whiskey, and things got out of hand.
Things got out of hand. I'll have to look up that episode and go through it.
We'll have to get you on Flash Aha one of these days.
I really want to, but you guys do it on Fridays, right?
Yeah.
Fridays? Yeah, mm-hmm. I always work. I'm always working on Fridays. I very rarely have that off. So what we would have to do is plan at least 2 weeks ahead.
You had a Friday off for Colin Clark. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I had to schedule that like 3 weeks ahead of time. That's why. So let me know, like, I don't know. I guess let's plan ahead for like 3 weeks or something, and I'll request it off. And I'll be able to do it, because I do want to do it. I love that stuff, man. I love the writing Flash live and critiquing it and stuff. It's just so much fun. I don't do it otherwise. Like, I'm always working on my novel, so I don't always get the chance to like write something new and fresh and different.
I knew nothing about Flash fiction until I started my own Flash fiction web series, and now I've written several, which people tell me
learned by doing. Yeah, learn by doing.
Have you read Leviathan Wakes?
No, what's that?
It is that one in the first book in the Expanse series.
Oh no, I have not. It's on my list. That series is on my list. And several others.
Just finished the last book. But the first book is one of the 2 point of views is a detective on a station in the asteroid belt investigating a murder.
Gotcha.
Well, a disappearance. Spoiler alert.
A disappearance that results in it to be a murder. Yeah. Okay.
Tonally, it could be quite up your alley.
That sounds right up my alley for sure.
I read a brilliant years and years ago. I read this brilliant sci-fi short story, which was like a neo noir about a private eye on an asteroid colony investigating these murders, and it turned out the murderer was the carpet, because they'd been importing sentient rugs.
What?
Can't remember what it was called or who wrote it, but
rug murdered. Well, I mean, dude, there's just some books like that where it's like somebody gave me this book. I still it drives me insane that this book exists. It's a zombie apocalypse, but the zombies are cows.
Nice.
And then it has a sequel called World War Moo.
I've actually been writing a zombie short story, which I'm sure is something I swore I'd never do.
I made the same swear, and I just I'm probably gonna end up writing well.
Well, it's like one of the things. Like, I mean, I was young once. I enjoyed zombie films, but it's
I still enjoy them.
Why is it? As long as I can get someone to hold a pillow up during the scary bits, I'm fine. why is it always, a couple of, everyman hiding in a shopping centre or a barn? Why do you never get the West Wing zombie episode? Like, that'd be brilliant. And it was an idea I was kicking around about 10 years back, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna sit down and write the whole epic because I'm not writing a zombie novel, damn it. But there might be a short story in it. And I read this book called The Secret State by Peter Hennessy, which was a non-fiction book about Britain's nuclear policy from 1945 to 2001. Okay. And it is a massive tome, and it is so dry, but it's just full of these fascinating little tidbits on like where the bunker was they would have moved the government, and how it was immediately out of date and they're currently trying to sell it off as a wine cellar. And as soon as the Russians had spy satellites, it became single use, because if they did spot you heading there, then it would be on the list next time around. And like, if they thought that the bomb really was going to drop, they were just going to stick the Queen on her yacht and wish her luck.
Well, what else are you gonna do? Stick her in a rocket and shoot her into space? Yeah, I mean, that's. I guess that's all you can do.
But yeah, and and like it goes into some detail on what the plan in the 60s was, like which airbase the helicopters would have taken off from, where they would have refueled to get the Prime Minister out of London. Okay. And I'm like, that's a cool scene. Let's put that in a short story. And what if we had zombies? And that's just kind of like just a sort of one-act play kind of thing of the pilot who's there the day that they actually do have to, because that there's someone whose job every year, every couple of months is do a practice run of that, because that's what they do. And you're the guy who's actually doing it. I just thought that would be a cool little one-off thing. It's
a perfect example of the old let's do that, but what if it had zombies? Like, you can always just go, but what if there were zombies? And it changes the whole story. Like, I'm in. There's zombies, I'm in.
It's funny because my third book actually ends with the leader of Earth moving to a bunker, and I'm just like, I'm such a one-trick pony at this point. But
it's like, all about the bunkers.
I do love a good bunker.
Nothing wrong with a good bunker. Blast from the past.
I love history, and I love bizarre little facts, and I tend to do reverse research where I just read stuff because I'm fascinated by it, and then can put it in my fiction rather than going, and now let's find out how a hospital works so I can write my medical drama.
Yeah, dude, that's the biggest like hurdle in the beginning for me is all the research sometimes, man. Like, whatever it is that you're writing, you gotta dive into deep research for just for continuity's sake and basic, accuracy. And
one of the ideas I couldn't get to work in the McMurdo Rift was I wanted Earth to be essentially post-war Berlin. And like, I'll talk to Malcolm, I'll just start talking about the American Revolution or the Berlin airdrop, and he's just like, wait. It's like that bit in Galaxy's Quest. Explain to him like you would a child.
Yeah. Denzel Washington plays a lawyer in the movie Philadelphia, and one of his favorite lines in that movie, he says it like 5 times, is explain this to me like I was a 4-year-old. Explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. He says it like over and over throughout the movie, and it's always this crystallizing moment of, hey man, I'm too dumb to understand this. Can you dumb it down for me? Yeah, I love it.
like one of the things that I knew going in is like if you look at Deep Space Nine or Babylon 5 or like these big ongoing series, they'll often start in their own little corner and establish that and then work out. So by the end of it, they are going from one planet to another. But to start with, it's let's establish this setting in this world. And that was something that I very consciously tried to do. So we're in an area of space called the McMurdo Rift, and we're on a cruise liner called the SS Olympic. And I realized this idea of like having alien troops on the streets of Earth just didn't work because our characters weren't on the streets of Earth. And it was just like it was a cool little idea, but I couldn't make it work, so I ditched it.
Yeah. See, with the world that you're starting to get a glimpse of in the prologue, there is the idea is that the Spark is this like moon-sized space station, that orbits around this planet Gaia, this moonless planet, and and the idea is that the people that evacuated planet Earth before it died, and traveled the cosmos like looking for a new home for who knows how long. A fraction of them broke off and found their own place to live, this moonless planet. But instead of moving onto the planet, they took their starships and they fused them all together and they created the Spark. So it's essentially this like three-dimensional asterisk that's made up of the last of humanity's survivors, and because it's made from the spaceships,
and they smoke on it.
Yeah, it's insane, man. And so it's and so all of the buildings, all of it is made up of what used to be a gigantic spaceship. And so like even people's apartments and stuff, like they all like seem like homey apartments and stuff now, but they used to be like a room on a spaceship,
Why Gaia?
You're gonna have to read,
because it's like that threw me at first, because
it's humanity's homage to their home, to their the home that they left behind. They're calling their new home Gaia in honor of ancient Earth, but it gets
because the who's the character that they go to see with the mushroom? Faye.
Faye is one of the three main characters of my story. She's one of my POVs.
It seems like the sort of thing that a character like Faye would say, but if it's something that didn't come from like it felt very much in keeping with her world, which we're visiting from Bella's point of view as outsiders, but it didn't seem to be something that was unfamiliar to her, so it was that sort of caught me off guard initially.
Gotcha. The name of the planet being Gaia, you mean? Like
Yeah.
Well, it's been named that for several hundred years at this point. So, Bella's origins just they don't really factor into what the planet is called. She knows the planet to be called that, and more than that, she prays to it, doesn't she? Like throughout, she prays to it. So there's a whole like culture there that will like unfold to the reader.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it's like, are they praying to the planet, or are they praying to Gaia, the Earth spirit, or I wasn't sure how much of like old sort of New Age stuff was being literally carried over versus being part of your world building.
That'll definitely unfold throughout. Her Bella's family from the farm, that whole family and their way of life is one of the things that is kind of linked into everything else in the plot. And so as you discover things about the mystery of the killer and everything else, you're also discovering truths about all the people involved in this thing, and that's one of them is diving into like what her religion actually is and where it kind of came from versus what the rest of the Spark considers the typical religions to be. It's a whole other thing. Yeah.
I'm terrified I've broken your format.
Not at all, man. We're actually in the home stretch here, so if you have any final thoughts on it, we can actually start wrapping it up.
It's like, no, I will definitely sit down and check out your other chapters, because it does sort of leave you wanting to know where it goes. Especially with what you've said about what happens to Bella in the next chapter.
Yeah, I in this edit that I gave you, I've cut out the final line of the prologue, which used to read that Mitch and Bella made it home that night, but were never seen alive again. Like I actually
put it back.
Line. You think so? I don't know.
Or maybe not those words, but something.
Well, I'm paraphrasing. It wasn't worded exactly like that, but I'm paraphrasing. But I did get good notes about that closing line, because it was such a sucker punch to people. Where like, wait a minute, they're dead. But I go ahead and read the first chapter and let me know how it sits with you right now versus having that line, because the point of me taking out the line was that when the detective walks into a crime scene and sees the two people on the floor and starts describing them to the reader slowly realizes who they're looking at, even if the detective doesn't know yet. So that's what I'm trying to do by deleting that line. So just let me know how it sits with you once you read the next chapters. But yeah, within the next 5 chapters, you get introductions to my 3 main characters, Migdalia, Lear, and Faye, and then by the 5th chapter, you're full-fledged in with the mystery, and you know what we're hunting and what we're dealing with. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, Malcolm, my co-writer, is so good at cliffhangers at the end of chapters, and I'll get drafts back, and I'll be like, I need to know what happens next, and he'll be like, you wrote it, you know what happens next. I'm like, show me anyway.
Yeah. It's I love a good cliffhanger, man. In my chapter 4, the entire chapter has been leading up to finding out what is on this memory drive, and they have to unlock it and all this kind of stuff. And so, but at the very end of the chapter, the file is unlocked. It's a video file. Everybody's huddled around, and the detective says, "Play it," and that's where I end it. I'm like, I want, we've been building all the way up to this, but you gotta wait one, we gotta wait one more page. Turn the page again.
How long's the book?
Most of the chapters are much shorter than the prologue that you read. The prologue is about 8,000 words. Most of my chapters are around 5,000 or less, 3,000 on some of them, but I've got a good 30 or so chapters. So in the end, my first draft came out to be about 120,000.
Okay.
But I think the final draft will probably be closer to 150 or maybe even 170. It's a big boy. It's a big book.
You a pantser or a plotter?
I am a plotter. I like to say I'm a gardener. Gardener versus architect. So the plotters, as we think of them, are what I consider architects who plan everything out and know everything they're going to write. And I do a lot of outlining and everything. But when I sit down to write my chapters, I allow for the pantser in me to go places.
Yeah.
If it goes to somewhere good, then I go back to my outline and I adjust so that I can continue my story without gumming up the works.
Usually my chapters are around 3,000 to 4,000 words, and I'll have a sentence for each chapter in my outline, and then when I go to write each, I'll have 3 sentences for the outline, and when I go to write that scene, I'll take that sentence and break it down into 3 or 4 more sentences.
I do that too.
With a bit more detail, so I can, so I've got a bit of wiggle room. And it's outline, like sort of forming the books as I go, feels much more pantsing until I actually, get to it. Is a lot of what I assumed to be plotted actually ends up being changed quite late in the day, and some of the things that I sort of am thinking I'm making up at the spot, I realise that I've led up to much more obviously than I consciously realised.
I set up my chapters in a very similar way. When I start a new chapter, I go to my outline. What am I writing in this chapter? I will summarize my outline for that chapter into one very, very important sentence that tells everything in this one sentence. And then I'll break that up into a 5-sentence paragraph, and I'll break that up into a 25-sentence, collection of paragraphs. And I just keep, snowflaking it out from the beginning so that it always maintains that core idea. And then at a certain point, I'm just writing. Like, I stop doing the whole snowflake thing, and I just go.
Like I have spreadsheets.
Yeah, I don't do spreadsheets. I fucking hate spreadsheets.
Spreadsheets love you.
I fucking hate spreadsheets. I can't. They're just so tedious. I find them so tedious. I'm like, why can't I just write? I just want to write. Like, no, it's like a spreadsheet.
Yeah, I sat down when I did book 2 and I outlined book 2 and 3 back to back and put a spreadsheet together of what the what the overview of the books are going to look like and how many chapters they're going to be and how many scenes in each chapter. And it's not a hard and fast rule, and it can change, but to have a place to start, it's really useful.
Yeah. See, I outline on index cards, and now that I use Dabble Writer, my index cards are digital and they're attached to my manuscript. So I do all my outlining and writing in the same thing now, and it's easier. My brother, we have reached our time. It has been an absolute pleasure having you with us. Go ahead and let the people know one more time where they can find your stuff.
BradleyLejeune.com. Sign up for our newsletter, read the prologue. Adrian's just going to give it to you anyway, but run from him and subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah. Read the prologue so you guys can dive into the critique that we went over today. And man, I look forward to this thing. I think it's going to be really good. I really, really can't wait to read it. And if you have more chapters to share, please do. I won't share them with anybody, I promise. Just this one. For everybody at home,
I had a mate. I was a couple of years ago. I was playing about with writing a comic series, and I had a friend who just made a film based on a comic, and I sent him the first, draft, horrible, bashed keys, typos everywhere. It's the first thing out of my head. Hey, what do you think of this? And he was just like, yeah, I really liked it. I sent it to the writer of that comic, and he didn't think it looked very professional. It was like, you did what?
It's like, thanks for your help, buddy. Thanks for sending my first draft. Jeez, man. Some people just don't get it. All right, man. For everybody at home, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching. Mr. Lejeune, we're going to have you on live stream Sunday. If you are interested in coming on for season 4, fill out my form. It'll be
absolutely, man.
It's in my link tree. You can get to it through Instagram because I want to do a more straight up interview kind of dealing with you. But this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much for the notes on my prologue. I really appreciate it. I hope that I wasn't too harsh on yours. I really did like it. And yeah, man, for everybody else, I will see you on Sunday for Chronicles, a brand new episode of Chronicles. I believe we're doing another AuthorTube tag. So see you Sunday. All right, y'all. Thank you very much. Right on, writers. We're out.